Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Ruegg Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 490 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm not joined this week by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. He's not here, he's gone AWOL. I haven't actually heard from Eddie since last week. I tried to get in touch with him this week and have had no joy, so I'm hoping that everything's okay with him, but at the time of recording I really can't say. I'm going to have to carry on. The show must go on. It's going to be just myself, so please stay with me for the entirety of the podcast so I'm not all on my own. We're going to start with the review part as per usual. We're going to start here at York Hall, Bethnal Green, last Friday the 7th of March. 3 fights to mention actually. Mitchell Smith 17-1, now 18-1, a points win for him over 6 against Christian Narvaez, who's now 17-85 with 7 draws. Very durable guy. Once again, here's the final bell. Also on the card, Ezra Taylor moved to 11-0. He boxed last-minute replacement opponent Ryan Maycock, now 8-6. Like I say, a straight-up KO in the second there for Ezra Taylor. He's now 11-0. Maycock counted out after being floored by a right hand to the body. And the main event, Sean Noakes, friend of the show, moves to double-figure wins. He's 10-0, a TKO for him in the 8th round against Jermaine Osborne Edwards, now 11-2. That one for the English welterweight title. A good win there for Sean Noakes. All the very best to him. We're going to move now to the Royal Albert Hall in Kensington, London, United Kingdom. This one was live on Sky Sports. Let's touch on every fight on the card, I think. I think we should give them all a mention. Francesca Hennessy was on the card. Obviously, it was an all-female card. She's now 6-0, a points win for her over 8-2s against Gemma Ruegg, now 8-13 with a draw. Ruegg suffered swelling on her forehead. Good win there for Francesca Hennessy. It was always going to go the distance there. 8-2s. Ruegg is pretty much as tough as they come. Also on the card, an upset win here for Jasmina Zapatoxna. She's now 9-1. Another upset win for her. It's 2 on the bounce now. Last time I believe she beat Maisie Rose Courtney, who was an undefeated prospect. She's beaten another undefeated prospect here, Chloe Watson, now 8-1. She loses her O for the EBU European flyweight title over 10-2s. A split decision there for Jasmina Zapatoxna. Moving up the card once again, Karis Artingstall moves to 7-0. A unanimous decision over Raven Chapman, now 9-2. I thought this one was going to be quite a good fight, but Raven Chapman down in the second round from a left hand. It was for the vacant British featherweight title over 10-2s. Artingstall looked very good. Again, I have to say I'm quite impressed. I thought this test might have come a little bit too soon in her pro career for her. Not to say that Raven Chapman's this wildly experienced fighter, but I just think Raven Chapman has showed us in the past quite an aggressive style, and it's quite an exciting style when it's all clicking. And I just thought that she was going to bring something to Artingstall that Artingstall maybe certainly hadn't seen in the pro ranks. But credit to Artingstall for getting the job done and in classy fashion. Also on the card as well, this was a bit of a mad ending, this fight here. Caroline Dubois moved to 11-0 with that one draw. A majority decision for the WBC lightweight world title over 10-2s against Bo Mi Rishin, who's now 18-3 with 3 draws. Caroline Dubois was definitely bossing it early on, but then obviously she seemed to very, very rapidly run out of steam in the later rounds, and she was, I don't want to say hanging on for dear life in the 10th and final round, but very close to that You know, I almost want to say that. She was absolutely spent in the last round. And it's quite concerning when you really actually think about this deeply. She's young. She's obviously a fighter that seems to be in good shape. But remember, women fight 2-minute rounds. So she was very tired from about maybe 16, 17, 18 minutes of fighting. Bear in mind, they have 2-minute rounds, then a 1-minute rest, then 2-minute round, then a 1-minute rest. So to be completely running on empty, you know, after 17 minutes or whatever of a fight is quite concerning, especially when, again, I don't want to be that guy, but women obviously want the equal treatment in not just boxing, but all sports. But you got to compare, you know, men go 36 minutes fighting and not even half of that. And Caroline Dubois, who is looked at as one of the best female fighters in the world, is running on empty, you know, in less than half of what it would be for a male's, an all-male fight. And obviously they box for 3 minutes instead of two minutes and 1 minute break, which is a lot easier as well to manage in that format than it would be doing 3 minutes then a 1 minute break, 3 minutes then a 1 minute break. She probably wouldn't have been able to go 10 rounds, if it were 3 minutes. So that's very, very worrying, I think, from Caroline Dubois the other night. I think, you know, it was probably a body shot that she suffered, but still, she was barely able to stand up at the end, and that was just a real concern. Also on the card, Natasha Jonas dethroned, friend of the show, now 16-3 with a draw. She loses her world titles. It was over 10-2s to Lauren Price, who won unanimously. She's now 9-0. She's now the world champion, and she's now the lady that everyone wants to see in with the winner of Sandy Ryan, Michaela Mayer 2. Very classy performance from Lauren Price, just a bit too young, a bit too fresh, and at times a bit too clever for Natasha Jonas, who obviously gave it her all, same as what we get with her every time. Really good performance from Lauren Price. It was kind of like a changing of the guard kind of moment, I suppose, in some ways. I don't know what Natasha Jonas does from here. I still think there's probably a couple of paydays left that she could, she could get. I would still like to see her fight Chantel Cameron, something like that. I think that would be, a decent fight. I don't know how much money would be in that from where they're both at the moment, but in my opinion, I mean, that would be a fight I would be quite excited to see. But like I say, all the best to her. Very nice lady. She's achieved, fantastic things in boxing in just a few short number of fights, really. And obviously she turned over quite late and stuff, and she's done amazingly well. So if this is to be it for her, then all the very best to her. But yeah, good champion, good fighter, good person, and I wish her all the very best moving forward. But it's all about Lauren Price, and she has a very, very exciting future. Moving now then to the Brighton Centre in Brighton in United Kingdom. Obviously it was live on Channel 5 on Friday once again. We saw on this card Michael Conlan move to 19-3, a comeback win for him. It was a points win for him over 8 against Asad Khan, now 19-6 with a draw. Khan was very limited. Michael Conlan didn't look great. I think he should just pack it in all honesty. I don't think he is going to be able to do anything remotely impressive if he continues fighting. I don't think he's going to win any kind of title. Even, a European title would be too much for him. So I just don't want to see him tarnish any kind of legacy he did have, which was obviously mainly based around what he did as an amateur. But it's just a little bit of a shame to see him carry on. if he just doesn't have it anymore, which that does seem to be the case. And the main event, Harlem Eubank moved to 21-0, a TKO for him in the 10th for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Welterweight title against Tyrone McKenna, now 24-6 with a draw. McKenna down 3 times in total, once in the 5th, once in the 7th, and finally once in the 10th. Impressive from Harlem Eubank because, again, it was a little bit of a step up in terms of name value and stuff like that. We know Tyrone McKenna mainly for being a tough, durable guy, but obviously, again, I think I'm right in saying he retired and then came back out of retirement. So he doesn't have too much left. We knew that going in. We're not going to be fooled by that. But still, it was a step up for Harlem Eubank, and we have to as well mention that Tyrone McKenna was coming off a good win last time out. You know, he's obviously lost most of his big fights, and I've said that for years. I don't think he's a fantastic fighter, but he was coming off a good win against Dillon Moran. He suffered a shock kind of stoppage loss prior to that to Mohamed Mamoun. Obviously, the pair boxed in 2020 during, I think it was during COVID times, if I'm not mistaken, or might have just been before COVID. And Tyrone McKenna got a gift decision at York Hall against Mohamed Mamoun, and Mohamed Mamoun obviously rematched him and ended up stopping him, which was quite a shock because, like I say, Tyrone McKenna is usually quite durable. Gone the distance with Lewis Crocker, gone the distance with O'Hara Davies, gone the distance with Jack Catterall. Some of them guys, they're big punchers. He was stopped by Regis Prograis. That's not surprising, but yeah. Stopped to Mohamed Mamoun was a little bit surprising, and I thought Harlem Eubank, he's not the biggest puncher, he doesn't even have a 50% knockout percentage, and in a bit of a step up, I expected him to probably win on points, but Harlem Eubank with quite an impressive performance, again, quite explosive. I think he's improving a lot. He seems to be getting better with every fight, in my opinion. And it was just another box ticked. I mean, he's got himself to 21-0 now, like I say. I don't know what the next step is going to be. Obviously, they're very, very slowly sort of stepping him up a little bit. But he does need to get the ball rolling a little bit now. But at the same time, I don't think Sauerland have a fantastic range of talent in their roster. So, and they've got their hands in the misfit stuff as well. So, I mean, if they're going to be serious about their pro boxing, then they're probably going to try their best to hold on to their undefeated fighters. And Harlem Eubank would have to be one of their best fighters really in their small stable. I think they've only got a few guys. Josh Kelly's with them. I can't even think of who else. So they're going to try and wrap them guys up in cotton wool. But yeah, I'd like to see him stepped up again. I think he obviously has talent. And has ability, and he's a very fit guy. I think that's his main, the main tool in his arsenal is he's very fit, got a good engine, and yeah, he's an exciting fighter. So all the very best to him. He's another friend of the show. Moving now then to Saturday at the Red Owl Boxing Arena in Houston, Texas, USA. Over here we had friend of the show Melissa Odessa Parker moved to 6-3 with a draw. It was a split draw over 8-2s. Against the undefeated Hannah Rapp, who's now 4-0 with a draw. That one for the NABF featherweight title. Melissa Odessa Parker with a draw there. Again, she hasn't had the best of luck in her pro career as of late. And then the final card and fight to mention of the review part of the show, it went down yesterday in Australia at the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney, New South Wales. We saw Keith Thurman, former world champion, move to 31-1, a third round TKO for him against Brock Jarvis, who is now 22-2. It was quite an impressive performance really from Keith Thurman. Obviously, I've been a big Keith Thurman fan for years. I've probably been one of his most loyalist fans. But he hadn't scored a knockout since 2015, which is mental. 2015 in July, so almost 10 years since his last stoppage. He did threaten to stop Brock Jarvis in the build-up, but I don't think anyone was too sure how serious he was about doing that. And yeah, it's been 3 years since his last fight against Mario Barrios. That's the one frustrating thing about Keith Thurman. He comes back, he's just been so inactive. He comes back gets a good win against Mario Barrios and then just disappears for 3 years. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Mario Barrios, since he lost to Keith Thurman, come back and beat your Dennis Ugas, picked up a belt at a new weight, but Keith Thurman just seems to disappear, and I don't know how much money he was being paid from Al Heyman back in the day. Maybe he's not too bothered about the sport. It does seem that way, but he disappears, and it is quite frustrating because as a Keith Thurman fan, I've always thought he's super duper talented. His one loss was to Manny Pacquiao on a split decision. I mean, that's not there's no disgrace in that, and that was almost 6 years ago now. Since then, he's just had 2 fights, 2 wins. What is he going to do? Is he going to build off of this one here? I hope so, but obviously he went all the way to Sydney for this fight and impressed against Brock Jarvis. A 3rd round stoppage is quite impressive. Brock Jarvis is a big puncher himself, but I guess at this level, Keith Thurman had the goods. So yeah, very impressive win, and hopefully we see him again this year, and hopefully he doesn't just disappear for a long time again. All the very best to Keith one-time Thurman. That then brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former #1 ranked super featherweight contender in the world. It is, of course, Mr. Archie Sharp. Archie, welcome back on the show.
Hello, Joe. All is well, mate. Thanks for having me back on.
Always good having you on, Archie. So we last spoke back in January. At the time, you were getting ready to fight Liam Dillon, obviously in Bournemouth. You ended up being pulled out in the weeks before the fight by your trainer. For those that don't know, because I didn't see Queensbury announce too much at all, actually, on social media or whatever. I'm guessing some people still don't quite know. Even when I saw the news, I was like, oh no, I hope he's not injured. But just for those that don't know, Archie, fill us in. What happened?
Yeah, so basically I got come down with the flu, pretty bad, and then I was on antibiotics. So it just wiped me out for about 3-4 weeks. I wasn't in the gym, unfortunately, leading up to obviously the most crucial time of a camp. So unfortunately, my trainer had to make the decision to pull me out. Obviously, I was there. I see you up at Bournemouth. I was at the show, and I would say probably about 4 or 5 days, literally just me feeling back myself was then. So there was no chance of me being able to fight.
Yeah, no, completely understood. I was just happy when I found out that it wasn't an injury, because that would obviously be really bad. You still attended the event, obviously, like you said. In the end, you were there. Your gym mate, Mace Ruegg, stepped in to fight Dillon and obviously lost a split decision. Did you think that Mace won? How did you think that the fight looked?
On the night being ringside, I thought Mace won. On the cleaner shots, like the thing is with boxing this day and age is that the boxing is the art is to hit and not get hit, and I believe personally that Mace was doing that. He was landing the cleaner shots, he was boxing beautiful on the back foot, and obviously Dillon was throwing probably more shots, but I felt like the quality of shots was coming from Mace, hence the reason why I had it the same as the other judge, who had it for Mace, but then the other two had Dillon in front by, I think, 2 rounds.
And also, what did you make of Dillon? I mean, obviously you've seen him fight before, but, being there, watching him up close like that, you probably haven't done that before. What did you make of him? Did you look at him thinking, oh my God, I wish I was in that ring right now? Or did you think maybe he's a bit better than you thought? What did you think?
To be honest with you, I thought the level where that was, what was it for, Commonwealth silver? He done well, he done well. He pressed the fight. He made a fight. But yeah, he's definitely a fighter who takes a lot. Do you know what it is? Sitting there watching it, obviously I know I was obviously Team Mace because being out of our gym, but it was hard to watch really because he just fights with his face, and it's not good to see fighters like that. You see tragics happen, and it's just hard to watch. And I just feel like when fighters fight like that, they're not allowing themselves to have a long career.
No, yeah, I get it. Also, you've become somewhat of a commentator now. Did you enjoy dissecting the fighters from the other side of the ropes this time?
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it for sure. I had a good night up there. It was nice to sit there and, like I say, do a bit of commentary. yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed that. It might be something more of.
I'd like to see it. Yeah, you know, in all fairness, you've now landed what I'd say is definitely a bigger fight for yourself. May the 23rd is the date in Doncaster. You'll be boxing Maxi Hughes over 10 rounds. It's a totally different style, obviously, versus Hughes than what it would have been, though, against Dillon, Arch.
Yeah, so Dillon was look. The reason why I was happy with the Dillon fight was because at the time, coming off with the Garner fight, and I know what I can do. You know, like I personally still believe now I've got the ability to beat Garner, me at my best, and just me at a comfortable weight, which obviously I am now. I'm at 135 at lightweight. I feel like I'm a completely different fighter now. So having someone like Liam Dillon who comes forward, who presses the fight like Gardner, I thought it would be a good fight for me to get back just to showcase what I can actually do and what I should have done back in July. But like I say, things happen. I've got a different fight, a different style now. So we'll just have to adapt. But this is a better fight for me in regards of progress in my career. Maxi Hughes is a former world champion. I'm a big fan of Maxi Hughes. But I believe this will bring the best Archie Sharp, you know, like if anything, he's a little bit above me in career-wise, like being a former world champion. I believe he beat Cambosas, and I thought they robbed him there. So he's been at that level, and he's still at that level. He coming off a great win against Gary Cully. So this is perfect for myself, you know, and I'll show everyone why I believe I'm at that world level.
It's definitely... obviously a totally different fight. Is definitely a level above, and I agree with everything that you said there. But obviously, stylistically, I agree with you as well. When you've got a guy coming at you, that's your that's your bread and butter, really. But with this different style change, stylistically, is it a harder puzzle for you to solve?
Look, I've always said I don't feel like there's any fighter out there who can outbox me. I generally stand on that. What I've said since day one is when everyone was saying about Shakur Stevenson, I generally believe like no one can outbox me when I'm at my best. So it'd be interesting. It's a puzzle that I'm gonna have to adapt to, because like I say, if someone coming forward to me, I have a field day all day long. Maxi is a cute fighter. He won't just throw unnecessarily. So yeah, it's definitely going to be boxing IQ is going to be on point. Has to be on point.
And would you put, I'm sure you'd put Maxi Hughes as the toughest opponent of your pro career?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe, to be fair, I feel like in the British lightweight division at the minute, Maxi is probably the most avoided and bogey man there is, to be fair. I generally believe that, you know, like you could arguably say this here is two best of the lightweights fighting for a British, do you know what I mean, at British level. I know you got Joe Cordina, you got Sam Noakes, but I mean, where like they're not fighting each other. Sam's not fighting Maxi, or Joe's not fighting Maxi, do you know what I mean? So I believe in this is like a big British lightweight fight, personally.
And also, Archie, I'll throw this question in. Obviously, you were going to be fighting under, Queensbury's banner in Bournemouth. This one is obviously not to do with Queensbury. Where do you stand right now promotionally?
I think just at the minute it's like all under one banner, you know, like the whole what Turkey Al Sheikh's doing with boxing, DAZN. Even though I'm not, like you say, it's not a Queensbury, it's a GBM show. I don't know, it's hard because everyone's working together now, you know, like you got Terry Harper on the show headlining. I think she's signed with Matchroom, if I believe, off the top of my head. So I think everyone's just kind of working together at the minute, which is brilliant for boxing.
Yeah, and it's obviously on DAZN as well. So I just want to get your prediction for your fight, Archie, if you have one. Obviously, you'll know that Maxi's extremely tough. He's been in with, as we know, the likes of Gary Cully, a big, huge lightweight who can bang. It's going to take a lot to put him away. What's your thoughts, though, prediction-wise?
Prediction-wise, so the thing is, with Maxi Hughes, he's always in a good fight. Like I say, with Combosa, other than Zepeda, when Zepeda stopped him, I think he's always in great fights. You know, he's beat some great opposition. Gary Cully's a great fighter. He beat, and I feel like he won convincingly there as well. But I generally believe if I do what I do, I can make this pretty one-sided. I really believe that. If I do what I do, I can make this really a one-sided fight.
I would love to see this happen for you, Archie, of course. Just before we let you go, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, you are the guest that has been on the most, the most.
Well, look, like I always say, just keep tuning in. It has been an up and down and sticky last 4 years. Career's been a bit all over the place, but these are the fights now. Like Maxi Hughes is a big name in the sport of boxing, lightweight division. Once I beat Maxi, he's for the WBA Intercontinental. He's highly ranked in all the organisations, so it kind of springballs me on then. So potentially for a world title fight. So yeah, stay tuned. Things are going to happen. Big things are happening, and I've always said it's about timing. So I'm looking forward to putting on a show for everyone. May 23rd.
Cannot wait for May 23rd. You'd be crazy to miss it. Listen, Archie, I want to thank you for your time. Best of luck, like you say, on May the 23rd, and we'll speak sometime after, I'm sure.
God bless you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. I'm going to start here with this. Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen will be having that rematch. It's highly anticipated, obviously, after the controversial finish to the first one. So, yeah, that one to go down at the Copper Box Arena on Saturday, May the 17th. I cannot wait for that rematch. I've got to be totally honest. I really cannot wait for it. No undercard announced just yet for that one, but really looking forward to it. We also have in other news, Naoya Inoue to defend his undisputed junior featherweight / super bantamweight world titles against Ramon Cardenas at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. That one to go down on May the 4th. That one's just been announced literally yesterday. Moving on then to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here in Dubai on Saturday. We have friend of the show, John O'Carroll, 24-3-1, back in a 10-rounder against the undefeated 11-0 Alexander Prado. He's 11-0 with 8 KOs. This is a homecoming fight for John O'Carroll in some ways because he now lives in Dubai, but like I say, all the very best to him being a friend of the show. He's coming off a stoppage defeat last time, though, back in July of last year, but all the best to him, like I say. Moving now then to probably the big card of the weekend. It goes down at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. It's going to be live on TNT Sport as possibly the last card they're going to be showing, I think, from Frank Warren's stable on BT, or /TNT, I should say. I think this may be their last card on that channel before they move over to DAZN, but could be wrong. It's definitely one of the last ones, if not. Let's touch on the undercard first. We've got Jack Turner, 10-0, in a bit of a test, really, against a decent fighter in his day, Ryan Farag, 23-5. I remember being at York Hall when he lost on points to Sonny Edwards one time. But yeah, it should be a good fight because Ryan Farag at times has kind of rolled back the years a little bit. So that's a 10-rounder there at Superfly. We've got Brad Strand, again a homecoming fight for him, 12-1 for the vacant WBO European Super Bantamweight title against Ayana Baluta, 16-5 with a draw. That one's over 10 rounds there at Super Bantam. Again, this one could steal the show. I'm a Baluta fan for sure. However, he was very impressive in the first Dennis McCann fight, but absolutely dreadful in the second Dennis McCann fight. That for me was a little bit concerning because the second fight against McCann, I was at that fight and he was very, very, very bad in that fight there. And I didn't understand why, because again, he hadn't boxed since the first McCann fight. He went straight in from the first fight to the second fight. I think McCann may have had one fight in between both fights, but he looked good in the first McCann fight and really bad in the second one. So I couldn't get my head around it. He hasn't boxed since then. That was back in July of last year. He steps in with Brad Strand. I make Baluta a favourite here. I haven't seen the official odds, but I would side with Baluta to win that one, to be honest with you. It's going to be a good fight though, I think there, but yeah, I think that's going to be a good fight. We also have the highly spoken about prospect Heidier Herrera, 16-0 with 14 KOs. The Cuban, only 22 years of age, the southpaw. He's back in action here. He steps in with Jose Enriquez, who's 21-3 with 2 draws. Never been stopped though, so perhaps he could provide some kind of test. He has been in there with the likes of Yves Ulysse Jr. and Samir Ziani. So decent guys there that have both beaten him on points. So yeah, that'd be interesting seeing the Cuban once again. We also have Andrew Kane, 13-1, back in a 12-rounder against friend of the show, former WBC flyweight world champion Charlie Edwards, 20-1 these days. This one for the British, the Commonwealth and the WBC international silver bantamweight titles. All the very best there to Charlie Edwards. I've got to, call it honestly. He's obviously got a good, he's got a good chance. He is. He's a former champion. He has had a good career. I think he's got his brother now, Sonny Edwards, recently retired, helping out. I think that can only be a good thing for him. At times in Charlie's career, they haven't seen eye to eye. It seems like, they're all cool now, which is good to see, of course. The family are a really good family. I know them. And yeah, like I say, Charlie has had the career that Andrew Kane really hopes he can get, to that kind of level. Andrew Kane's one loss came to Baluta, who we've mentioned is on the undercard. So yeah, Andrew Kane is the favourite. Andrew Kane is a massive puncher. It's just a case of what has Charlie Edwards got left in the tank at this point in his career. If he has enough, he could win this fight. But it's a big if, because he's been very inactive in recent years, and a loss here I think would be quite devastating for him at this kind of level now. I don't think he would find a comeback, very easy to do. So I'm pulling for Charlie Edwards. I'd like to see him win, but I wouldn't want to bet against Andrew Kane because, again, he's very, very heavy-handed and he brings something that Charlie Edwards probably hasn't seen for a while. We've seen Charlie Edwards get stopped in the past from a good fighter in John Real Casimiro, but again, I probably wouldn't say he punches as hard as Andrew Kane. It's just a case of can Andrew Kane land the right shot. But yeah, there's a lot of momentum with Kane. Also on the card, again, it could be a good fight. It usually is with Nick Ball involved. He is defending his world title. He's 21-0 with a draw. He's back in action against TJ Doheny, 26-5. Again, like I say, probably will be a good fight just because Nick Ball's involved, but I think TJ Doheny will be tough. I just feel like he could potentially be outworked at times in the fight. That high work rate that Nick Ball likes to set, I don't know if Doheny's going to be able to keep up with him. Doheny's coming off his only stoppage defeat in his career, obviously, which was to Naoya Inoue back in September. It looked like his back went in that fight. It's only been 6 months. I don't know much about back injuries. We don't see him too often in boxing at all, but hopefully he's back to full fitness, because if that were to be an issue in this fight, then I don't see him lasting very long again. But my hunch would be that this one will go a few rounds. I'm expecting probably I might even go with Nick Ball on points. But if it's not going to be Nick Ball on points, it will probably be a late stoppage. I don't think he'll get rid of TJ Doheny early in this fight, because Doheny, if nothing else, is very tough and has upset the odds many times in the past against very good fighters. So again, you wouldn't want to write him off, but I just think at this point in his career, I don't know how much he's got left. Moving now to the Carib Royale Orlando in Orlando, Florida. Over here we have 3 fights to mention. Let's start down the undercard. Jermaine Ortiz, 18-2 with a draw, back in a 10-rounder against Yomar Alamo, 22-3 with a draw. Jermaine Ortiz, for me, one of the most unluckiest fighters, I think it's fair to say, in recent years. Obviously, his 2 losses came at the hands of Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. Both losses somehow winded up being unanimous. I think they were very, very, very close fights. He just hasn't had the rub of the green. I felt like he definitely deserved to beat Teofimo Lopez in their fight. So yeah, I'm excited for him to be back. I think he should already be a world champion in my opinion, but he's back here against Yomar Alamo, like I say, who again is a a capable fighter with decent experience. Again, been in there with the likes of Richardson Hitchens and Liam Parrow and other guys. So, yeah, he brings something to the table. He only lost to Liam Parrow on a split decision. So it could be interesting, this fight here, but you'd have to back Jermaine Ortiz, I think. Also on the card as well, return to the ring for one of the most inconsistent fighters, I think it's fair to say, in world boxing. Edgar Berlanga, 22-1. He's boxing here for the WBO NABO super middleweight title. It's over 10 rounds. Never seen such an exciting fighter when he turned pro, and then obviously seemed to completely burn out. He was terrible against Damon Nicholson, Marcelo Cosera, Steve Rolls, Roma Alexis Angulo, Jason Quigley, and then he looked pretty good against Padraig McCrory, and then he looked pretty good in a loss against Canelo. That was his last fight. He's back once again. He steps in with an undefeated fighter, 20-0 with a draw, Jonathan Gonzalez Ortiz. He's got 16 KOs. He's from... oh yes, he's from San Juan, Puerto Rico! I don't often get to say it with that emphasis, and it's because Eddie's not here and he's not laughing at me. So yeah, like I say, could be interesting there. I don't know much about Gonzalez Ortiz, and the main event is Austin Ammo Williams back on track, 17-1 currently. He did have the one fight after losing to Hamza Shiraz. He's back in the ring here against Patrice Volney, who's 19-1 from Canada. He's got a manager called Eric Berlanga. I swear I'm not making that up. How mad is that? He, last time out, was able to stop Stephen Butler. He's been in there with Esquiva Falcao, who's a good fighter. Yeah, other than that, you know, hasn't really been on the big shows. So it's his golden opportunity here as well. That is it for that card there. Moving on to the next one. This one goes down on Sunday at the Madison Square Garden Theatre in New York, USA. Over here, this one's going to be on UFC Fight Pass, I believe the channel is called. It's a bit of a strange card. This one here, there's a few names on it that don't always go together, but let's start down the undercard. We've got Thomas Carty, the heavyweight, 10-0 with 9 KOs. He's back in action against Dajuan Colloway, who is 10-3. That's an 8-rounder there. We've got return to the ring for Cletus Seldin, 28-1, back in an 8-rounder here. He gets in with Yeis Solano, who's 15-4, but Cletus Seldin has been very inactive. Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. He had the one fight in 2020, one fight in 2021. He didn't fight in 2022. He had one fight in 2023 and one fight in 2024. So what does that make? That's 4 fights in the last 5 years, and he's back in action here. So yeah, all the very best to him in his fight. Also on the card, we have we've got Feargal McCrory, who's 16-1. That one loss came to Lamont Roach Jr. He was stopped when he boxed Lamont Roach for his world title. He was stopped in the 8th round there back in June of last year. He's back in the action, coming off that defeat, and he steps in with Keenan Carbajal, a guy with a record of 25-4 with a draw. I've definitely seen him before. He's got 17 KOs from his 25 wins. He's been in there with Leo Santa Cruz. That's probably the fight I watched of his. He was in there with Leo Santa Cruz, losing a unanimous decision back in 2022. And then the main event here is the Irish prospect, the undefeated 12-0 Callum Walsh, with 10 KOs to his name. He's back in a 10-rounder against the UK's Dean Sutherland, who is 19-1. Dean Sutherland, based in Aberdeen, Scotland. He lost his O to Louis Green back in 2022. He was stopped there in the 5th round. But again, Louis Green's a good fighter. After that, you know, he's bounced back to winning ways. He's won 6 on the bounce since then, and he's taken an undefeated record or 2 away along the way. So it's not a bad fighter here, but he is up against it against Callum Walsh, who, again, they're moving him kind of strangely for an average prospect. They are kind of, they're picking kind of strange names. I think, obviously, with the involvement of the likes of Tom Loeffler and stuff like that, they've got their own pathways. It's a pathway that someone like me, for example, a British boxing fan, is not all too familiar with. So, he's still ticking all the boxes and stuff like that. And I do want to see Callum Walsh in with the kind of bigger known name guys. He's been linked with them for long enough now. But, a win here, and hopefully we see him push on to those bigger names. But anyway, that brings the preview part to a close. In part 1, we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2, we did the news and the preview part. I'm saying we did it as if it was me and someone else. It was just me, and if you've stuck with me all this time, then I thank you very much. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do on my own in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 490 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. It's just been me the entire show. I'd like to thank this week's special guest, the former #1 ranked Super-Featherweight contender in the world, Mr. Archie Sharp. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in, especially this week. You've kept me company, and if you're listening to me even now, then I am extremely, extremely grateful. Believe you me. That is about everything now, though, from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again same time next week. I think by then Eddie will be back, hopefully. See you then.